Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Non Sequitur Nerds. Tonight, we're going to need you to prepare for the future a couple years after the fact. Anyway, though, as always, I'm Tim, joined by Ian. Why don't you tell them what we're talking about, Ian? Changing it up
I,
on you. Haha. For all the times you
I,
changed the outro on me.
I wait, we're talking?
I hate you so
Oh,
much. I hate you so much.
uh, anyway, yeah. So we're talking. What are we talking about? We are talking
You're going to leave it
about.
up to me anyway to do the intro. Well, anyway, we are going to be talking the GPU shortage and the fact that it's apparently already it's over now. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. So GPU shortages, just general purchasing abilities of your everyday consumers
Yeah.
for products like these. Um, Kind of going into just a little bit of detail and looking at some historical trends and just kind of giving our little opinions about this. But
Yeah.
before we get into that, how are you doing?
Man, we're really changing it up today.
Yeah, we really are.
Not too bad, not too bad. I've been on vacation, and by that I mean involuntary, not going to work. But my whole plan has been so it's been kind of nice to just kind of relax, not have to worry about any of the work related stresses, and just kind of take care of some stuff around the house, work on some things, my own personal projects. So it's been fun.
Oh, good. Nice to hear that. All right. Well, things have been going fairly well for me as well. It's pretty low key, short week this week, which is good. I
Yeah.
got a kid's birthday coming up in a couple of weeks. But yeah, otherwise things are going well. So enough about the boring parts of it. Well, why don't we move on to the actual subject at hand? So,
Excuse me.
GPU and GPU shortages. So, as Tim dies, I'll go ahead and kind of set the stage here. So, last year, 2021, late 2021, we saw the release of the latest generation of NVIDIA cards, the 3000 series cards. Typically, there was the 3060, 3070, 3080. There was the 3090, then the TI generations uh, along with that. But kind of a I don't know, maybe been a good or a bad time for Nvidia to release new cards because they came out of
Yeah.
the pandemic, right? When everyone was trying to, you know, build PCs because they had nothing better to do with their lives.
And had
Now
all that
that
stimulus money.
right, but that said, there was a very massive shortage, but I don't know how much of it was actually a true shortage and how much of it was an artificial shortage. And the reason I say that is because a lot of the times what happened was they would put up these cards for sale on websites, and then the bot spammers would just immediately uh, swoop in, buy up dozens of cards, and then put them up for scalper prices. So double, maybe triple the cost of
Quadruple for some of
you
them.
know, right retail cost. So we were seeing a massive hike up, and it was very difficult for your everyday consumer to get a hold of one of these cards. I mean, websites were being crashed
Yeah.
uh,
It was
because
pretty
people,
bad.
yeah, people were just flooding them. And again, we're seeing markups on these things. Several 2, 3, 4x for its MSRP value. So
Yeah.
it's really rough for anybody trying to get a hold of cards. Typically in my case, I've always custom built my PCs. Tim has custom built his PCs, but it was just so hard to get a hold of a card that I just went with a stock built Alienware last time.
Right.
Which I mean, don't get me wrong, I love my PC. It
Yeah.
operates fantastically, but yeah, it was bad.
Well, see, and like for me, I actually because I enjoy the process of building. I actually held off, and like I was still rocking a up until I built my new computer, which I'll get into that here in a little bit. I was still rocking a seventh gen seventh gen i9, and like the motherboard that I had, I couldn't physically get any other processor faster than that would be compatible with that motherboard, and I'm like, if I'm going to upgrade this thing, I'm going to upgrade the entire thing. And with video cards being so ungodly expensive, that was one of the big reasons that I'm like, the video card I had in there beforehand did its job. It worked great. But I'm like, if I'm going to upgrade, I'm going to go all out. And the video card, like Ian said, there was a shortage in the sense that you couldn't find them at MSRP. They were readily available out there at scalper prices, but I wasn't about to pay as much for the video card as I did literally everything else on my computer. And there is a second part to the shortage, which was the huge rise and meteoric fall lately of cryptocurrency and crypto mining.
Mm.
The newer 30 series cards in particular, miners just latched onto those things and built huge rigs designed to do nothing but mine cryptocurrency. And for a while, we won't get into the ins and outs of cryptocurrency. We could do a whole 5-part series on that. But the long and short of it is, crypto market crashed. GPUs started getting sold aftermarket, used ones for less than MSRP now in a lot of cases. But because they weren't actively buying them new to continue building their crypto farms, they started becoming available at retail. At first, they were, there's a little bit of a manufacturer, a retailer markup, because there were still some miners buying them. Miners as in digging, not miners as in children. There's a distinction there. But then as less and less miners started buying them, the retailers were like, well, crap, nobody's buying them. Let's lower them down to MSRP. And now a lot of places you're seeing brand new ones at slightly less than MSRP, at least as of the time of this recording anyway. Which is a huge, like Ian said, a huge turnaround in price from, we'll say a year ago at this point.
Yeah.
Give or take right around a year ago. I mean,
and some of that is, I think there's speculation about new cards coming out. The Nvidia's already announced the 4000 series, which everyone is eagerly looking forward to.
Especially if some of the rumored specs are correct on them. But we'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah, and really the difference is, the difference between the 1000 and the 2000 series was minimal in most cases. Like, you weren't really getting a huge uplift. Now the uplift between the 1000 and the 3000 series was huge.
Oh yeah.
Like, and these were especially, because the 1000 series, I have a 1070 Ti in my laptop, and it's
that more than did the job back in the day.
Yeah, it still works fantastically. I mean, it can run into a little bit of trouble with some of the newer games. Like, I can't run everything on ultimate graphics, but it'll still run Crisis. But the cards, the newer cards are, obviously have better specs and things like that. But the other thing with the newer cards, as Tim mentioned, is that they were designed to be able to run crypto mining off of. A lot of them actually had specific circuitry and algorithms like coded into the firmware to be able to do crypto specifically for crypto mining.
Yep.
Now, Nvidia tried to do a couple of things with like physical hardware blockers to prevent mining, but it was just basically a thing that was soldered onto the board. You could crack open the card, pop it off, and then go back to mining. So most people didn't really care.
Well, I was gonna say, and I think it was like the last card that the Nvidia themselves put out that had the limiters on it. Within, I think it was it was less than a week, if I remember right. Modders figured out really quickly how to edit literally a few lines in the coding of the driver for the video card, and they didn't even have to crack that chip off. They just put the firmware on it, and they were able to mine with I think it was like a 1% reduction in efficiency. But I mean, when you're talking 1% of how much pure processing power these new cards have, 1% is negligible.
Right. Yeah, so I mean, the cards are getting cheaper. The prices are dropping out of that. But that one of the things Tim had mentioned earlier, about retailers selling them, I don't ever really think it was, and this is just my opinion, I don't ever really think it was a problem with the retailers, because if you think about it, they a retailer, Newegg, Walmart, Best Buy, whoever it is, they get a card for a certain amount of, they pay a certain amount of money to Nvidia or the manufacturer or whatever, and then they put their markup on it or whatnot. So long as they're getting their typically 30% margin on those cards, they're not caring. And it's actually better for them if they sell them at MSRP or just slightly above MSRP to get, so it doesn't leave a bad taste in people's mouths. But the manufacturers and the retailers, they really don't care about the scalpers. So they're getting paid either way.
Yeah.
And scalper prices, reseller prices don't benefit them at all, because they don't see any of that money.
Yeah,
It's already been bought, sold, and paid for, and they've already received their cut of the money.
Yep.
So there was little to no um, roadblocks or deterrents or extra steps that were put in to deter these people, like these bot scalpers and things like that. So I mean, you literally just you program in the web page and you wait. Your bot just waits for the sale to come on and then
Yep.
buys up 14 cards. A little bit towards the end, I think people started doing some stuff where, like I
Virtual
think,
wait queues and things like that.
yeah, virtual wait queues. I think like Best Buy had some of those, but it was
Yeah.
the same thing really with like the next gen consoles, the PS5, the Xbox Series line. When those first rolled out, you couldn't get a hold of them because people were just grabbing them up and scalping them.
Yep.
It was the exact same thing. But I think with that, it was a little bit more problematic for these the manufacturers, Microsoft and Sony, because they have a reputation. They're the first party distributors of these things. And there's also other people like the game makers who are also influencing decisions here. So they started doing more things with that.
Yep.
Again, more of those virtual wait queues.
Well, I mean,
Sony was doing some stuff where it was like if you were a PS Plus member,
yep.
you would get, they would do like an exclusive block of like 200 PlayStation. Like you had to be invited. You had to be a PS Plus member. You had to get the email invite, and then you had to be there for like the sale start, and you could potentially get one.
Now Sony actually updated that, and I kind of like the way they do it now, where because I had gotten it, and like Ian and I have mentioned on the show, we each own PS5s already. I have little interest in having a second one in the house just because there's not really a need for it yet, but I had maybe a month or two ago gotten an email from Sony that before, like Ian said, you had to be there at a certain amount of time, and it was like they invited more people than what they had, but they knew they're going to sell anyway. But now the way they do it is they tell you, hey, you've been selected to purchase one. This is the time that this link is good till. If you don't purchase it by that point, this link is invalid, and even if you do get to the site, we will not guarantee you get one. But it was like a guaranteed spot, so we're starting to see that even consoles, which again, I mean, if we're talking video cards, consoles obviously have video cards in them. We're starting to see that the shortage there is starting to alleviate itself as well. But it seems like a lot more in the news, you're hearing a lot more about the video card, lack of video card shortage versus what you are consoles. Consoles, it's still at this point easier to buy a video card than it is one of the new consoles, at least off the shelf. Going back to my new PC build, obviously, if you were listening, I said my new PC. I was able to snag one of the new video cards, the 3080, at MSRP. A year ago, I would never have dreamed of having a 3080. But I was just like browsing the other components on whatever website I was. Just kind of getting a price, figuring out, well, do I want to go with this motherboard, this one, what processor do I want, what kind of RAM, kind of, building it in theory. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm going to look at video cards just for, giggles. And there were a whole bunch of the 3000 series cards in stock at MSRP. So I went ahead and bought it before I had finalized what I wanted to build the rest of my computer because I knew it was going to be compatible one way or the other. But yeah, it's like one card on a website, maybe two popping up. Yeah, you might have seen that in the last year. A dozen or so, or probably more, at MSRP, all listed in stock. That's a new thing for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, a lot of places were running almost like a sweepstakes lottery type way thing to do this. Newegg was doing it. You could sign up for like Newegg Deal Watch or stuff like that, and it was basically like a lottery system. They would list these except they did them all in bundles. Like you couldn't just get. So it was always like, oh, you can get this card and this shitty PS, like power supply, as part of that, you're paying full retail price for the power supply. And you're like, this thing's a piece of crap. I don't want it.
Well, like when Newegg first started doing those, when Newegg first started doing the lotteries, they did have a couple that were the card only, but then everything else was bundles. But yeah, after like that didn't last very long, and it was bundles. And a lot of times it was, like Ian said, power supplies. Or there were a couple that I had looked at and like threw my ticket in that were a motherboard GPU combo that I'm like, it's when I was first thinking about this, like that's it's not a bad motherboard. Wouldn't be my first choice, but it does come with a video card I want. And I mean, obviously, I didn't win any of those lotteries, but um, I think a lot of that was too little, too late. I mean, again, like you had said, um, the card manufacturers they had already sold the cards. They didn't care whether they were going to you, me, Joe down the street, or Scalper in the swamps of Florida. They didn't care. It got sold. Whether it's aftermarket listed at that point or not, it's not really their concern. They're not losing any money.
Mhm.
Um, but I mean, these companies like they did a lot of, and maybe we're wrong. Maybe this is just our opinion. A lot of things on this show are, but they did a lot of PR. Oh, we really want to get these cards into the hands of actual consumers. We want to make sure that the right people are getting our products because we know we've got fans that are clamoring for these things. And yeah, while they did have fans that really wanted them, because a lot of people, myself included, are tech junkies. They want the newest stuff, even if it's not a huge increment over what they have currently. But like Ian said, this time around it was really different because a lot of people were still, when those cards first came out, a lot of people were still off of work because of the pandemic. Um, a lot of people were still, riding off that stimulus money, things like that. Um, so it was a little different this time around of who could get the cards versus who wanted to get
Yeah. Yeah, and again, it may not necessarily be that the manufacturers didn't care, but
them.
I
That's
actually
how it looks to us.
that's how it looks to us. And I actually had an argument with a guy on a Discord that I'm in that I used to work with him, and he's kind of an asshat. Uh, but argued with me up and down about they care, it's their reputation that's on the line and all this stuff. But if you really go out there and look at it, there's not. I mean, there are plenty of card manufacturers, but there's not chip manufacturers. What I'm talking about there is I'm talking about really the video cards. You can get an MSI card, a Rogue card, an Asus card. All of those people they put the circuit boards and everything together.
Yeah.
But the actual chip manufacturers are going to be really Nvidia and uh,
AMD.
AMD. Thank you. Uh, So those are the two chips that people. I mean, there are some really kind of niche things like Intel has their ISIS card or their ISIS graphics card, which is really more for the um, like the small micro PCs. Like they're like they're onboard cards that are made for micro PCs. They're not.
Right.
They're It's not like an individual card that you can buy.
Well, I mean, heck, even like a lot of Intel CPUs have integrated graphics built into them, which admittedly are not really built for gaming. I mean, you can make it work if that's literally your only option, but it's not the ideal because at that point
Right.
you're splitting your CPU to run, its regular CPU tasks as well as the GPU tasks. It's going to limit itself on both ends, but I mean, in a pinch or like in my case, uh, I'm actually glad that my new CPU had onboard video because when I was first setting up my system, it didn't recognize my video card properly. I shut it down, plugged it into my motherboard's video slot, booted the video off of the CPU, and was able to troubleshoot it that way. So, like for troubleshooting purposes, they're great. For even general purpose use, that's great. Save yourself, a couple $100 on a GPU. But gamers, realistically, typically aren't going to run, their main gaming rig off of their CPU's built-in video.
Yeah, unless you're wanting to play Halo Infinite and have it look like Minecraft. Um,
I mean, let's try that later. Let's see if my CPU can run Crisis.
but yeah, so I mean, we're starting to see, and the chip shortages in general are starting to kind of go away. There's more chips that are coming in. Now we're still feeling the pinch in several industries, like the auto industry is having problems with chip shortages. I think I saw a headline the other day about I think it was Chevy or maybe General Motors is the parent of Chevy, but I think it was specifically Chevy built like 90,000 cars that they don't have chips for
Oh wow.
that are just sitting in the factory lots because they can't do anything with them. Like
Right.
all of the car, all the cars and components of the cars anymore are all, you know, chip based. It's
Yep.
there's
All
not a, there's
digital.
yeah, it's all digital. There's not a lot of mechanical. I mean, there's still a lot of mechanics to a car, but it's
Yeah.
mostly the engine.
Well, I mean, I
Uh,
remember reading, like when the chip shortage first started, Tesla caught a lot of crap because there was, I think it was like a USB port or it was something minor in their cars that they just didn't have. So instead of alerting potential buyers or people that had already paid for their Tesla that hey, we won't have this USB port. And if I remember right, I think it was a USB port that it wasn't a charging port. It was the main one to hook your phone up to like the car's entertainment system and all that fun stuff. It just didn't have that. And I mean, granted, yes, I'm sure you can Bluetooth it, but for some people, they like that zero latency being plugged in, especially for audio purpose.
right.
But they started just shipping them out to people. And like if people got it and questioned it, like, oh yeah, well, we've got you on a list. They're back ordered. But apparently, the reason they caught crap, if I'm remembering correctly, was they weren't notifying people unless people got a hold of them. But they're like, yeah, we'll ship you one. And at this point, it was like an obscenely long wait for a USB port. I mean, granted, I'm sure it's a USB port. I'm sure anybody with, any kind of engineering, capability could have went out, bought a generic USB port, for like a car, any other car or a charger or whatever, and wired it up to get data and everything. But it's a fact you pay that much for a vehicle in this case. You expect if it's not doesn't work, if it's not built the way it was designed, you would expect there to either be some kind of notification on the company's end or some kind of better wait time than several months for a US. But
Yeah,
I think they obviously have since this is public news now. They obviously have since figured that out. Or I know like some manufacturers, if they couldn't get a part and it was like an optional part, they just started manufacturing the vehicles without the capability for that and just removing it as a feature.
yeah. Like I've been trying to get a hold of a new truck for a while, and yeah, it's been on order. And the manufacturer actually just emailed me about a week and a half ago. Well, actually, right before the holiday, and they were like, "Hey, yeah, so we don't know if we're actually going to be able to get to yours. Why don't you call the dealer and you can talk to them?" Like, alrighty then. So,
So I guess you're
yeah,
getting a different vehicle.
potentially, yes. But
Just
anyway,
get a Tesla, Ian. It'll be fine.
yeah, we won't go into that on this
And
episode.
if you don't like it, I'll gladly take it off your hand. I mean, it's already paid for. I'll take one for the team.
Gee,
I
thanks.
got you, boo. I got you.
So, anyway, obviously, the GPU shortages are starting to go away, but we're kind of looking. Um, we're now looking. Tim and I mentioned, the next generation of cards that are potentially coming out. Although, I think the latest is that the newest cars, the 4000 series, at least from Nvidia, are going to be delayed. I
That
think is
yeah,
what
that's what I was seeing as well. And apparently, it's partially to blame on just the overabundance of 3000 series cards that are now out there readily available for sale. Effectively, the way I'm understanding it, if they were released the 4000 series at its scheduled time, whatever that may be, they would have cannibalized their own sales by having the last generation thing, which for a lot of people isn't even a thing they have yet, with the newest generation thing, which nobody has yet. So it's one of those. If we release it, how many people are actually going to buy it? Are they just going to sit on shelves? Are they eventually going to have to take a markdown because they've sat on shelves for so long, and we're going to lose money on it? So I mean, it's there's a lot involved in it because again, like I said, what is effectively at this point last generation 3000 series cards, the majority of people don't have one of them. They're still rocking 1 or 2000 series, and they're not. I don't know if they're ready for 4000, especially if they come out now. Allegedly, and again, this is all rumor and hearsay. Allegedly, some of the 4000 series cards, price wise, because they've been able to streamline the production process, because they've been able to outsource different components. Price wise, the 4000 series cards apparently are not going to be astronomical, which has a lot of people kind of wondering about. I mean, the 4000 series cards, we know they exist at this point. We know it's a product that's coming. there's not a whole lot of concrete evidence about them at this point. But so I mean, it'd be interesting to see when they start putting out those specs. How much better are they actually going to be?
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, what they really put out there and what they come up with.
Oh yeah,
One of
for
the
sure.
benefits of, having a tower is that I can obviously upgrade, my card, my setup.
Right.
So that's one benefit. But yeah, it'll be interesting just to see kind of what happens.
Oh, for sure.
I'm not in the market to get a card myself. I don't think Tim is either at this point. I
I,
mean, we
I
both have,
literally just bought one.
right. We both have brand new, relatively brand new systems, so it's not like there's a necessity. But
Yeah.
we definitely know that there's people out there that are still wanting to build PCs and still wanting to get put together some stuff. Some of the folks that Tim and I play Final Fantasy with are in the market. We were talking about it earlier tonight. Are in the market for trying to, for PC parts and just trying to figure out what's out there. But again, it's not hard. But I would say that if you're looking for something that if you're looking to just kind of upgrade machines and things like that, you could definitely do a custom build, or you could just buy something that's pre-built. Pre-built PCs are generally pretty good
Yeah,
these
there's
days.
nothing wrong
Yeah,
with a pre-built.
yeah. Again, I'm very happy with the one that I have, and you can get some good deals on pre-builts, especially to save some money if you're
Yeah.
looking at things like open box items. And a lot of times, open box literally is someone opened the box and said, yeah, I better go. Yeah, I probably should return this. It was a impulse buy that their wife yelled at them when they got home.
Well,
So,
like as an example, my new monitor. So I had to, unrelated to building my computer, I had to get a new monitor. So I went to Best Buy just to kind of see what they had. So I'm like, when it comes to actual visual equipment, I prefer to see it before I buy it. Components and things like that, I don't need to see what my RAM will look like before. So I went and looked at monitors, and I found one I really liked. And the guy that was helping me out, it's like, well, actually, hang on. Have you looked at our open box one? I'm like, not really. I didn't even know there was a section for that. So he takes me over there and he goes, oh, good, it's still here. And he goes, yeah, you want this one instead. And it was literally the same one. I'm like, okay, well, why is it open box? And he said, literally, the guy bought it, came back 20 minutes later, didn't like the way it looked on his desk. And he said, we checked it. It was the same serial number. He even put the plastic wrap back on it. All the cords had the ties back on them. And he goes, it's the same monitor. There's nothing wrong with it. He just didn't like the way it looked on his desk. And I'm like, well, what's the price difference? They go, oh, it's $100 cheaper. And I had already looked at the display one and was already sold on this. So I'm like, bro, sign me up. I'll take two.
nice.
They didn't have to. I jokingly was telling the missus because they had an open box. It was an LG. What was it? It was like a workstation monitor. Like the 60+ inch ultra wide workstation monitors. I jokingly said I was going to get that. It was like even open box was still like 700 or $600 or $700. And she looks at me and goes, "The hell do I get then?" Like nothing, because I'll be out $700, woman. But I mean, realistically, that there's
you
no way.
you get to sit in the front seat,
Right?
because it's gonna take up the entire back
Dude,
seat.
well, realistically, it'd be like, what do I get? Well, we don't have to heat the downstairs now because of this giant ass screen. Um, but
Right.
but no, I mean, realistically, there's no way that would fit on my desk. But it's going back to PC stuff. It is nice as a hobbyist, somebody that, admittedly, Ian's known me for years. I'm a bit of a technophile. I like to play with the new shinies because they're new and shiny. Um,
And he's got ADHD, so anything.
exactly. Well, if you can't tell, I keep glancing over because my the running joke, my PC is set up so that there are lights everywhere on it, like my keyboard, my mouse pad, my speakers, the 6 fans in my computer, my video card, like tension bar, whatever the things that keep your video cards from sagging. My RAM, my liquid cooler, everything is lit up on this. I keep seeing it out of the corner of my eye and keep looking over because I see movement, so I have to look at it. But
Right.
but it is nice for a hobbyist, somebody that enjoys building computers. it is nice that this stuff is starting, and it's not just video. I know video cards were kind of the highlight of our talk tonight, but even other parts like RAM, CPUs, like even fans, it's becoming a lot easier to find this stuff. So hobbyists like me can get everything they need, have all the parts ready for their computer right there in front of them without having to, well, I'm not going to have my CPU, so I won't be able to even boot it up and install any updates. Well, I'm missing half my RAM, so it's going to run slower. Or I don't have all my fans coming in, so I'm going to have to open the chassis so it's not cool, or so it's not overheating. It's nice that we don't have to do that right now. I think the only part on my PC I had to wait on was a mounting bracket for my liquid cooler. And that's only because while the liquid cooler I got is compatible with the new 12th gen Intel CPUs, after a certain manufacture date, they came with the mounting bracket for those 12th gens because they came out during the 11th gen. That mounting bracket was the only thing I had to wait on, and that was free from the manufacturer. I just sent them a picture of my serial number. They mailed it to me. I didn't even have to pay shipping. But apart from that, and I had a backup air cooler specifically for this too. But apart from that, I didn't have to wait to boot up my computer, get everything updated, get my games installed. It was nice. And a year ago, I would have not even thought about doing a custom build. So it's for hobbyists, it's a good time. And for people that, are PC gamers, or even if PC isn't their main platform of choice, even if it's something that they play secondary, it is nice that a lot of people are finally going to be able to start upgrading these things at the suggested price that they should be sold at. So it's a good time, I think. All in all, it's nice to finally see the shortage and inflation of these prices going away. That said, though, I would highly advise any of our listeners, and tell your friends, shy away from used video cards, particularly the 3000 series. Because while those deals may seem great, now if it's from a reputable source, if it's maybe a manufacturer refurbished one from the manufacturer, or it's an open box item from a reputable retailer, I'd say those are mostly safe. Anything that's not sold directly by Amazon, anything on eBay, anything on Wish, don't buy any video cards from Wish. They're never going to sponsor us, and I don't care. Anything from eBay, anything from Craigslist.
This is a video card you get from Wish.
I mean, pretty much. It's a screwdriver. But anything that's not sold directly by a manufacturer or directly from a retailer. Do not buy any used video cards, particularly 3000 series for now, because a lot of those that are really good deals are ones that have been doing crypto mining nonstop, 24/7 for Lord knows how long. I don't think anybody can guarantee how well the card will work out of the box, or how long it will even work. Crypto mining taxes the ever-loving crap out of the hardware doing it, which is a part of the reason that miners kept buying more and more cards, because the more you have, the less stress on each one, and the more you can mine. The more you mine, you get more money, you buy more cards, it kind of repeats itself, but eventually you have to swap out all your cards. Miners are now selling their cards en masse because of the crypto crash.
Yep.
And unfortunately, unwitting, buyers are buying them up used because it's a good deal. And I've been hearing a lot of reports of people that the cards literally crap out the second you boot it. And it's yeah, so viewer, beware. That's been my public service announcement for the day.
Congratulations, you have listened to a public service announcement from Non Sequitur Nerds.
The more you know. And knowing is half the battle.
I think we just segued between three different things.
I think we did.
Anyway, well,
Sonic says... Oh, wait.
With that brain fart, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up for this Ned talk. So thank you for listening as always. We hope you tune in next time. And as always, you can go back and listen to previous episodes
and please do.
Yes, please do. On all of our hosting platforms, our main sponsor, Anchor.fm. As well, you can also find us out there on youtube.com/non-sequitur-nerds. Social media, facebook.com/non-sequitur-nerds, Twitter @non-sequitur-nerds, and twitch.tv/non-sequitur-nerds. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up. And thank you. And hope you all have a wonderful morning, evening, or night, depending on when you're listening to us. So I think that'll take care of it.
Right.
As always, for the Non Sequitur Nerds, I'm Ian.
And I'm Tim. Hi, everybody.